Hello, I'm Kathleen Walker. This is Andy Shirting with New England Endurance Events, and tonight is our swim run Q&A for gear. So I know many of you are wondering, just exactly what is the best gear to have for Swim Run Cape Cod coming up in just a couple of weeks, or for other swim run. And I'm gonna hand it over to Andy to introduce our esteemed speakers tonight.
We're really pleased to have several members of Team Envol with us. It's a little bit of a backstory. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Kathleen and I met the founder of Team Envol, Swedish Nicholas. And uh, the, the the club or the team is started off in Sweden and has spread into other European countries and now has spread into the United States. And sure enough, about a year ago, Kathleen and I met Marcus Barton, who's going to be on today, and he is one heck of a fast swim runner. And I think he sort of leads the Envol operations in the United States. We also have Tristan Manning, and we've got Emily St. Germain, and they're all accomplished swim runners, and we're really pleased to have them to talk to you about gear, and we'll leave some time for Q&A, and you can ask uh, maybe some other questions that have been pestering you.
Pestering.
Sorry, we got a hungry cat who, even though we put the food out, it's still hungry. Uh, all right. So,
So let's get started.
Marcus, and Emily.
And I'm just going to add a thank you all so much for coming out here. It's so exciting to see people, and just know that people are excited about this sport and wanting to learn what it's all about and figure out the gear. We also have from On Ball, Dave Dammer here, who I know has gotten all sorts of sample items to show on screen. So if you're wondering, well, what the heck does that mean or what does that look like? He's here as well. So I think we'll just start with, what are your questions? What are you wondering about supplies for the race, or, how to set it up or how to use it?
Let's while we're waiting for some questions to follow in, I want to just kind of introduce myself. As was introduced, I was Marcus Barton. I'm one of the coaches at Envol. I'm kind of lead the Envol coaching in the U.S. along with Nicholas Ramirez, who is our head coach based out of France. A little background about Envol. It was, as mentioned, it was created in Sweden around 2014, 2015 timeframe, where Nicholas Ramirez saw that there was a need for specialized coaching when it comes to swim run, because it's, as many of you are starting to find out, especially if this is your first swim run, you've kind of gotten into some of the training, it's not really triathlon without a bike. So he created a initially on a coaching program, and it kind of evolved into a full community of athletes. So we've got several hundred athletes across the globe that get together in different forms and fashion, as far as getting together to train, to offer help to each other, to offer answers to questions to each other. And on top of that, obviously, we offer a coaching program. But nowadays, Envol is really about a community of swim run athletes that like to enjoy the sport. So I'll throw out a link into the chat window so you guys can kind of check that out on your own. But let's from and you can use the raise your hand option within Zoom. So hit the raise your hand option if this is your first swim run, and just kind of a see from the attendees. So within Zoom, just hit that raise hand button if you got it. Seeing a couple there. All right. Good,
An
good, good.
actual hand raised also works.
Yeah. Yeah, like this. Or if you want to just raise your hand like this. Zoom is smart enough to know that if you put your hand up, it should typically put up a hand. All right, so that's good. So let's talk about gear. And while we're talking about gear and while we're talking about some samples there, go ahead and throw your questions in the chat window so that we can get that. Some of those I'll cover. And then also, we've got Trista on the line as well. She's actually in the room on her laptop. She's going to pop up. Hey, this is Trista. This is my love, who also loves the sport. So we kind of do it together as a couple. And then we don't typically race together, but we do it together as a couple. So it's a sport we both love. If I can't handle the questions on the screen, Trista will handle that, answering those questions in the chat if they start getting kind of overwhelming. So let's talk about gear. And the best way that I like to talk about gear is to talk from head to toe. I'm going to start from the head. Obviously, you're going to be provided a swim cap. Typically, in most races, you'll be provided a swim cap. If you're not, Dave's showing one on the screen. Obviously, you want a swim cap that has the thickness that's going to help you with the temperature that you're going to be in. A lot of people say that swim run is cold business. So a lot of times you'll see the swim caps a little bit on the thicker side to help you with that cold water. In addition to that, ARC makes a product called, and I'll talk a lot about ARC, and I should just go on the disclaimer here that I am an ARC ambassador. So all of my gear, for the most part, is ARC gear. But you can find, in addition to ARC, there are other manufacturers that make very similar products. So I think, Dave, you've got some non-ARC gear that you can show as well. But there's another product called the ARC Halo. And all this is it's a thin neoprene strap. And the idea is that you put that thin neoprene strap over your head and it covers your forehead and it covers your ears to kind of keep your ears warm and to keep your forehead warm. Because that's one thing that where you'll really get that ice cream headache and you'll be sensitive to cold. So this is something that's kind of in between a full neoprene cap and a normal swim cap. So if this doesn't keep you warm, and I usually wear this underneath my swim cap, my rubber or silicone swim cap. If this doesn't keep you warm enough, then the next step is to go with like a full neoprene cap, typically with a strap that goes underneath your chin to kind of keep your head and your ears warm. So that's from the head aspect.
Hey, Marcus.
Go ahead, Dave.
It's Dave. Yeah. So another another possibility is that if you don't happen to own one of those Halo headbands or one of those neoprene caps, many of us will always bring some extra things to a race, and those extra things might include extra swim caps, and sometimes double capping can give you that extra warmth on the head as well. If the day you get there in the morning, it's like, oh gosh, this is a few degrees colder than I thought it was going to be. You always want to have the race provided race cap so that you're in the right color and the officials can see you and stuff. But sometimes double capping can be a solution if
Yep.
in a pinch like that.
Absolutely can. And then kind of working our way down. Obviously, the next step is goggles. I don't have my goggles handy, but you can. There you go. That's good. And those goggles could be tinted or they could be clear. I do know that at Worlds this past Monday, sidebar, I just got back from Sweden last night, so I'm a little bit jet lagged. The some of the people that raced in Worlds on Monday, it was very overcast, so it wasn't very bright out, and they had dark tinted goggles on. They couldn't see getting it out of the rocks very well. So choose a pair of goggles that's going to be good for the weather conditions. Typically, tinted and dark overcast is usually not a good combo. With swim run, your entrance and exits aren't typically going to be at a beach or at a dock. A lot of times it might be climbing out over roots and rocks. And so being able to see where you're going to put your hands or where you're going to put your feet is usually something that you want to go for. So clear or less tinted is usually the way I roll. I've got both clear and tinted goggles, but the tint is very faint. Some folks ask about polarized lenses. Obviously, that would work well with swimming when it's bright out and you've got lots of glare and whatnot off of the water. In the Worlds and most of the races around in Scandinavia, if you should choose to go that far, the water is of the same salinity level as your eyes. So at Worlds, I wear no goggles because I can open my eyes. It's not going to burn. It doesn't irritate my eyes. And it's one less piece of gear that I have to deal with in transitions. Okay, so that's down to your head. And then for your body.
Before moving away from the head, there was a question in the chat if you could just wear the halo, and I think most races require you to wear the race cap provided by the race directors, but I'm going to let Kathleen and Andy answer that.
Yes, you're correct, Trista. And I just said that in the chat. And just for the record, swim run is not, I know most swim runs are like super cold. That's not the case on the Cape in September. So you won't need to worry about extra warmth. The water temps can be anywhere from high 60s to low 70s. So you'll be pretty comfortable in the water with just a swim cap.
And we have a piece of information for those who have a latex allergy, right?
Oh, yeah, that in that case, bring your own swim cap, but it has to be an actual swim cap, not something covering your whole head so we can see your head in the water.
And while we're talking about
Oh, that's
caps,
right. Sorry, Trista, I take that back. The ones for swim run are silicone, so you don't have to worry about latex allergies.
perfect.
And they fit better.
Yeah, and they can come off and on a lot easier. So
Someone also asked, maybe you already answered, if a wetsuit was required for this race.
it is not.
No.
Perfect.
No, as a matter
Sorry
of fact, there will always be a couple guys showing up in Speedos. Just happens.
Yeah.
Speedos or tri-suits or it's all. Yeah, I think it's your race. Kind of anything goes, right?
Yeah, it's well
As long as you
played.
covered some aspect. Most swim runs. So if we just talk in general, in addition to just talking Cape Cod, if we talk in general about most swim runs, if they are cold, you'll typically wear a wetsuit. Here's an ARC wetsuit, and it's designed specifically for swim runs. So what you'll find is that it has neoprene typically on the torso, and then the lower part of it is a different type of fabric. On this one, it's a neoprene type fabric, but it's one that doesn't have the rubber coating to it because it allows you to run a lot better. So typically from the waist down, it is of a material that allows you to run a lot better. And the very first wetsuit that I used in 2015, they at that point they had just started making swim run wetsuits, and the one that I had, the idea was they wanted more flotation in the legs, so the neoprene was really thick. It was like a quarter of an inch thick. And so running uphill was terrible because it's like you're running against resistance in that neoprene. So nowadays, most swim run wetsuits made by whatever manufacturer, the bottom half of it is typically a little bit better for running. This is the ARC Orna X, which is their thickest suit and their warmest suit. The other end of the spectrum is the VIG, the ARC VIG. And what it is, if you think about it from a triathlon perspective, this is basically like a triathlon and speed suit with a little bit of neoprene on it. So on the front, you've got a little bit of a neoprene coating to give you that slickness through the water and some warmth on the chest. But the rest of that suit is a very, very thin fabric, which if I spread it out, you can almost see through it. So the idea again is to give you a covering that's going to be very, very nice for running. This would be again akin from the waist down and on the back. It's kind of like a triathlon speed suit with very little neoprene in that. And then most of them come with pockets so that you can carry your nutrition or maybe a flask for fluid. But that's typically what I wear in most of my swim runs. So this suit here I would wear in 80-degree heat because it is very, very thin. You got one there you want to show, Dave? Oh, you're on mute, Dave.
The scourge of online meetings. I was just going to show the kangaroo top.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So a kangaroo top is an article of clothing that you can wear under a wetsuit, or maybe if you're doing a different sort of kit setup, a kangaroo top, again, made by ARC. It's got a series of nice, long, deep pockets, and it's basically for hauling some of your gear, but mainly your nutrition, which could include also a collapsible water flask, certainly some gels, depending on how long the race is that you're doing. So a kangaroo top can provide a little bit of warmth, but also, some very nice onboard storage, so that you don't have to solely rely on the aid stations. But it also, always good race strategy to know exactly where the aid stations are so that you can plan ahead for when you're going to do your nutrition.
Yep. And that kangaroo top, I'm glad you've got one because I don't have mine handy. It's in the wash from the weekend. Um, that kangaroo top also comes in a thermal version as well to give you additional warmth. That one that he's holding up now is a real thin one,
Yeah, it's
which
got
is
kind of a
nice.
mesh
Yeah, very,
back. It's nice and
very
stretchy.
breathable. Yeah, very, very breathable. It's got 3 pockets on the front, and then there's a pocket in the rear as well, so that you can hold stuff in the rear if you wanted to. This is where I stick all of my nutrition and a flask, as Dave mentioned, for most of my races. In addition to that, I'll use that larger pocket at the bottom that when I'm running, if it's going to be a long distance and I don't want to hold my hand paddles, I'll stuff those hand paddles into that large pocket of the kangaroo top so that I can run hands free and just kind of tuck it away.
And I know that Marcus and Dave probably don't have this, but Arc also makes a kangaroo bra for the ladies. It's amazing. It's my favorite. It is my favorite piece of gear out of the whole kit. I love it. I wear it outside of SwimRun. It's usually my go-to for all my running. It also has the pockets that you can stash keys or phone or gels or anything else. And it's nice, breathable fabric that dries really quickly. I love it. And it's true to size. I find that I'm a small, like across the board in most things, and I'm a small in that bra as well. It's amazing. Sorry, I don't have it. I don't know if Emily has one handy, but I don't have it handy.
Yeah, just think of the kangaroo top in a bra. It's pretty.
It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Love it.
One other thing about the kangaroo top is like Dave mentioned, it will give you some warmth. The thermal version obviously is a lot thicker, not as stretchy because it's made out of neoprene. I would not suggest wearing this as your sole piece of gear if you're not going to wear a wetsuit. Meaning, I know the question came up with, do I have to wear a wetsuit? I've also gotten the question of, can I just wear the kangaroo top? Well, you can, but those pockets are going to balloon up like parachutes and drag chutes, and it's going to slow you down quite a bit in the water.
Lose your gear.
And you'll lose your gear, right? So I wouldn't recommend using.
You could wear it underneath like a tri-kit, like a speed suit, something that's tight, that's going to be tight against your body.
Right. Yep. Oh,
there,
Emily's got the bra.
The
Go
bra
ahead and
has
say
entered the
something so
chat.
you go full screen there, Emily. Come off of mute so you
It has pockets too. In the front, or one pocket, which is great. It's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so the next question, if we're working from head to toe, if we work our way down to the waist, so a question that I typically get is, what do you wear underneath your wetsuit? I am a skivvies guy. I go with nothing underneath my wetsuit other than my kangaroo top. I have tried a variety of different, like a swimsuit. I've tried tri-suit bottoms out of a two-piece tri-suit. I've tried compression shorts, and none of them work very well for me. I always end up getting some kind of chafing from it. And in the arc suits, because of the way the bottoms are made, I can use nothing underneath it, and I won't get chafed, and I won't get like embarrassed because there's privacy panels. So I usually don't wear anything underneath. But I do know a lot of people that will wear like a Speedo bikini bottom underneath or a pair of compression shorts. So I don't know, Emily, if you've got something that you want to mention there. Wait, Dave, you're showing up some shorts that you wear. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Emily.
just regular swimming jammers. I haven't done the long distances, so I don't tend to run into chafing problems. So far so good with these, but everybody's results will vary on that.
Right.
And I've got these. I've tried Commando, and it doesn't, it's different things for everybody. It doesn't work as well for me. So
Right.
I like something, even a bathing suit bottom, you just want to put lube in all the right places.
Right. Can you show your bottoms again one more time? 'Cause your screen wasn't big when you showed it before. That's just like, oh, okay, so it's like compression shorts. All right, awesome.
Yeah, this is the brand is Swidgen, but any compression shorts will do.
Can you, Emily, can you put the link to Swidgen in the chat so everybody's got that? Swidgen has both tops and bottoms. I'll let her talk
Sweden isn't shipping to US anymore. So because of the tariffs, they can't afford it, and they're not willing to pass on that price to the consumers. So sadly, that's been paused, but they do make an amazing product.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. And then working our way on down, I'll come back to other gear other than what you wear. Usually a question I'll get is, hey, I want to try these floaty shin things that I can wear on my legs to give me additional flotation on my legs. I personally, I've heard different people, I've heard people that rave about them. I'm not a big fan of those. I've tried them. I thought that they were heavy for running. I also found that the flotation that they provided was in the wrong place. Typically with swimming, especially when you're swimming with shoes and swim run, you want to raise your hips. And then what these floaties do is they just raise your lower legs. And so people end up swimming, with a V with, their legs are up in the air, but yet their hips are dropped. So I wouldn't recommend that. But it's certainly something you'll see at a lot of races, and some racers swear by them. I just don't care for them. Instead, if you want something on your calves or shins to kind of protect your legs, because swim run does happen a lot of times in trail and then in some races even off trail. So, for example, if you go to Worlds or you go to Rockman, some of those trails are very bushy, and so you'll typically get scratched up on the legs a lot. So, in order to protect your legs, some folks will, instead of the shin guards, some folks will wear just knee-high compression socks. And so Dave's showing you some there. So in addition to the benefit of wearing socks in your shoes, then you've got also the protection on your legs. And if they're compression socks, then you obviously get the compression benefit on your calves. So that's what happens there. Now, from a shoes perspective, I actually wear just in any shoe that you're comfortable in that drains well will work well. I've done a shoe shootout that's on my website. It's a little old because shoes change from year to year to year. One of the shoes that I kind of settled on is the Adidas Terex, and they don't make this shoe anymore. So I ended up buying like 3 or 4 pairs when I found out they weren't going to make them because I really, really like this shoe. But just as an example, the reason that I like this shoe, and you can't really see it too well unless I grab my phone and shine a light up into it. So if I shine a light up into the shoe itself, what you'll see is that it's got, quite a bit of, if I take the light out and put the light back in, you'll see it lights up these panels that are very, very, they drain very, very well. It's just like a mesh. So that's one of the reasons why I like this shoe. The other reason why I like it is that it's very, very thin on the heel cup. So there's not a whole lot of cushioning here on the heel cup. And the reason I like that is that cushioning typically just soaks up water, which makes your shoes heavy and squishy. And so one of the very, very first things I look at, and I'm testing a bunch of other shoes now that I don't make these. I'm testing a bunch of other shoes, and the very first thing I look at when I pick up a pair of shoes is what does that heel cup look like? It's nice to have the cushioning, but it's also nice not to have all that water being soaked up in like a sponge. And usually if the heel cup is thin, that also means that the tongue is thin. I know you can't really see this too well on the camera, but if I shine my light underneath it, you might be able to see how thin this tongue is. It's like paper thin. There's no cushioning to the tongue. And usually if a shoe has a lot of cushioning back here, it also has a lot of cushioning in the tongue. So that's two things that I look at right off the bat when I'm looking at shoes. And then of course the drainage that we have in the upper and whatnot. There's not a whole lot of cushioning to this because we're typically running on trails. I found that if you have a higher stack height on your cushioning, that usually lends itself to maybe rolling an ankle on trails. So that's why I typically use a lower stack height on the shoes. And someone's popped up behind me here, so that means she has something to say.
Sorry. I'm here to say that Marcus is competitive and seconds matter to him. And if that is, and that's great. If that is not you, I recommend like you can wear whatever shoe you're used to running in. If you have a shoe that's comfortable, that fits you well, as long as it's not waterproof, it's going to work in most cases for most swim runs. And particularly for this one, there's not a whole lot of super technical trails on this. So if you have a shoe that has good grip, that can work well for you, that's probably okay. So yep. Don't get too wrapped around what the shoes do, especially what the shoes do in the water, because it really, you want to pick a shoe based on how it fits you in the run and not so much how it works in the water.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So
also, I dropped it in the chat. No waterproof shoes. And if you're wearing shoes, don't kick. That's a big misconception that people see. Like, don't kick if you're wearing shoes. It's just going to slow you down.
Right.
It's going to take you out of that good body position that you want. It's going to make you less aquadynamic, and we don't want that.
Right. So I don't think she explained why you don't want waterproof shoes. So And waterproof shoes are typically going to have the Gore-Tex logo because that's your waterproof shoes. The ones where they're made with the Gore-Tex technology, they're waterproof, which means they keep water out. But once you get water inside them, it keeps the water in. I know Gore-Tex is supposed to be breathable and drying, but every Gore-Tex shoe I've ever worn or tried in trail running that has gotten water in it, they work very, very well as a bowl, which you don't want, right? So again, going back to what Trista was just saying, pick a shoe that you're comfortable with, that you're comfortable with running on trails with, that you're comfortable running in this type of terrain that Cape Cod has, and then just go with that. But if you're wanting something that's a little bit faster, that's why I'm talking about the shoes that I have here. I've also raced in, this is the Adidas Terex. I've also raced in the Solomon Sense rides, and then I'll drop a link in the chat for where you can see the shoe shootout that I did and kind of some of my my other thing. I know we talked about compression socks, but usually another question that kind of comes up is, well, what about blisters? Do I have to worry about blisters? And I wear toe socks. So I know this doesn't look too well in here because I don't have all my fingers in there, but this is Injinji. They make a great toe sock, and I use their lightweight Injinji toe socks because they're thin enough that they don't hold a lot of water. But I used to have a problem even in triathlon when I was doing triathlon. I'd have a problem with getting blisters in between my toes. So on the sides of my toes where my toes were kind of rubbing together like that, and having the toe socks definitely prevents that from happening because they're all covered. So that's what I typically use for my socks. I don't wear the knee high socks, um, and unfortunately my calves show it from a scratching perspective. So that's kind of it from head to toe clothing. Um, if you want to talk a little bit about gear, Dave, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, Marcus, one thing we didn't mention is most of these swim run dedicated wetsuits will come with detachable neoprene arm sleeves for those days where the air is cold and or the water is cold. So just something to know in case you're wondering, am I going to be doing this entirely short sleeved? Maybe, maybe not, depending on the conditions.
Yep. So, and I guess that brings up a very good point, Dave. I appreciate it. Is that most of the swim run suits that you find nowadays, they are short sleeve and they're cut just above the knee. Again, from a running perspective, um, the very first swim run suit that I got that had the thick legs, it came as a full suit. And back then, the idea was you cut it to however length you want it. So I pulled a brand spanking new very, very expensive wetsuit out of the box and immediately cut the sleeves off. It was hard to do, but most of them come with short sleeve, but they come with those removable sleeves. The beauty of the removable sleeves are you can pick and choose. Not only can you pick and choose when you need to use them based upon temp, but if the race starts off cold and then heats up, you could take them off and stash them away and just keep them off. So you've got that ability, and that's something that we saw at Worlds on Monday. Was a lot of people started off with sleeves, but about 3 hours into the race, they were peeling those sleeves off because it was starting to warm up and the air temp started getting a little hot. Okay. Gear. Let's talk about additional gear.
Before we move into the paddle and pool boy, there was a question in the chat. We're doing the shorter course. We don't know if we should use paddles and pull boys, so he'll cover that while he's covering the gear itself. If you should use them.
Oh, you should absolutely use them all the time.
Should you train with them?
Yes, you should. So, and that's a very good point. I'll talk about training with gear. Go ahead, Eric. Did you have a question you wanted to throw out there? No.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Sorry, I just was trying to find the unmute there. Question for you. So this is my first swim run, and actually somehow I picked up a pair of those Terex shoes that you suggested, and I just want to make sure I understand. Is the suggestion to not kick only if you have waterproof shoes? Because what I found is I went in the water to try them, and I feel like my heels just float right up to the top of the water. Versus, when you're swimming without shoes, you're I think it's so. I'm just trying to figure out what's a recommended method of swimming with the swim run shoes on.
Sure. I can tell you that. Do you have the Terex Agravics or you have? Because the ones that I have, they don't sell anymore. So it's probably the Agravic that you have. Yeah. Do you know?
it says Terex Racing 240
Oh,
8 mm. I don't know. Yeah,
okay.
they look very similar to yours, pink, and
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. My
Okay.
wife just ordered these for me like a month ago, and I've tried them. I've tried them once so far on the lake.
Yep.
So
So the probably the and I'll speak to well, let me pause there for a second. So when the race first started back in 2005, I think 2006 is when they had their first event. But before 2006, they were actually doing swim run, and they were using a variety of things. So they had backpacks on, they were using big flotation devices. Like there's all kinds of things that they were doing before it became a race. And then once it became a race, their very first race, again, people were using very adventure racing style type of gear. And they learned very quickly that the sport evolved very, very quickly the first couple of years to learn, hey, these backpacks are creating a lot of drag. Um, the flotation devices were too big, so they scaled it back what the maximum you could do. But if you look at it today, what's evolved over the past 20 years that swim run's been around, and next year is the 20th anniversary of Worlds, over the past 20 years, what they've figured out is the best and fastest athletes, the ones that get through the races the fastest, and even not necessarily the fastest athletes, but the ones that finish with, because when you're doing any type of endurance sports, you want to finish with the least amount of energy expenditure, and you want to get through the race without running out of energy and so forth and so on. So the most efficient will use a pull buoy. So, and not just your little blue and white pull buoy that you see at most swimming pools or at most triathlon training sessions or masters groups. We're talking big pull buoys, right? Look, I mean, the size of this thing's the size of my head. And I think, Dave, do you have is that the Keel Plus or is that the Mega? So there's the Keel Plus. I've got a couple of them here.
Yeah, I'm using the plus, Marcus.
So all the buoys that Arc makes is called the Arc Keel. It's one of the two things that Arc really kind of established themselves as a company was one, they were the first ones to use non-neoprene from the waist down to improve the running of the wetsuits because every wetsuit out there at the time was all neoprene. So that was the first thing that kind of set them apart. And the second thing is they created the keel because it's a pull buoy that's very flotation, very light. And they came out with the keel, and then they came out with one a little bit larger called the Keel Plus, and then they came out with the Keel Small. So this is a Keel Small. It's about the same height as a typical swim run or a typical pull buoy that you see, but you can see that it's a little bit thicker on the roundish sides, the thick sides. And it's also curved so that when you put it between your legs and put it up in the nether regions, it's comfortable. So here's the keel small. I don't have a regular keel. This is the keel plus. And then as if that wasn't big enough, they came out with the keel mega. And if you look at the difference between the two of them, it's pretty significant. And it really depends on your style of swimming. A lot of it depends on your body weight. I've found that this Keel Plus is the best for me, and I'm about 165. Um, and the idea is, again, this raises the hips up out of the water so that you plane out like a boat, and so you can go smoothly there. And if you think about swimming from a traditional aspect, you have to get that hip up, and the kicking actually provides you not only with propulsion, but helps to raise the body out of the water. So that's where this takes the place of that. So to answer your question, Eric, is when I'm using this Keel Plus, I do no kicking. The only thing I do is I straighten my feet out so that I don't have my feet like this dragging through the water. So I just put my feet out as much as I can, and I'm not very flexible, so it's probably a little more like this. And I use this, and I use my paddles. And that does two things. One, kicking is from a coaching perspective, when I'm teaching swimmers to swim and we're doing things that are non-swim run based, kicking is a function where the propulsion that's being provided by the kicking has to outweigh the drag that it's creating. Okay, I'll say that again. The propulsion that you get from kicking has to outweigh the drag that it's creating because kicking does create drag in addition to propulsion. And so one has to outweigh the other. And if you are an inefficient kicker, then you're creating more drag than propulsion, then you're slowing yourself down. So the idea is remove that aspect completely, just plane out with your buoy, keep your legs still, and you're not providing that propulsion. So how do you make up for that propulsion? That's what these come into play for. So you've got your swim paddles. These look very, very similar to the very traditional paddles that you see out there, like the plastic ones that you'll see with the holes drilled in it. These are a little bit different in that they are made out of carbon fiber. You can kind of see the weave of the carbon fiber. So they're very, very light. They're lighter than plastic paddles. And there's no holes drilled in them because I want to get as much pull as I can. I don't want water passing through. I want to get as much propulsion out of these things as I can. And these come in different sizes. This is a medium size. I found that if I do larger than this for me, and everybody's different, if I do larger than this, my arm turnover slows down enough to where I actually go slower. So I use a medium paddle. These also come in a small. And then if you don't want the expensive carbon fiber, they also come in plastic if you wanted plastic ones. And you'll see a lot of different manufacturers out there that you can use. We see people racing with a lot of different types of paddles. The ones I don't typically recommend are the ones that are about the size of your hand because you're not getting much more benefit out of that than you are just using your hands if you didn't. So come back, big circle. I use these for the propulsion that I'm losing from not kicking. I've got the buoy that raises my hips up, that just planes me out, and then I just keep my feet straight so that there's as little drag as possible. The other aspect to how you're swimming and swim run is by not kicking, you're allowing your legs to relax and recover for the next run. And that's another reason why we don't typically kick and swim run. I've also had a question of, hey, what if I use fins? Certainly can. I've seen people use fins. Again, the rules of swim run are you can use whatever gear you want to as long as you carry it with you for the entire race. So if you wanted fins, I've seen people strap fins on their back and then get to the water and they change into their fins and change out of their shoes and they take off, or they'll have fins that they can put on over their shoes and use that. The reason I don't recommend that, however, is A, you're losing the benefit of being able to rest your legs during a swim for the running. And B, the transition time that it would take for you to change into those and change out of those fins at each water's edge will cost you time over the race. And so again, like going back to kicking, where kicking propulsion has to be, the propulsion provider has to outweigh the drag. The amount of time that you lose in transition by putting on fins has to be less than the time that you gain by being able to swim faster with the fins. And overall the race, if your legs are going to be more tired from the run, so therefore you have a slower run. So I typically don't recommend using fins in a swim run. It just slows you down your transition. Andy, how many swims do you have in Cape Cod?
We have 7 swims. And
Okay.
I'll also mention, though Kathleen put it in the chat, that we had made a decision to not allow fins at SwimRun Cape Cod.
Okay.
Just wanted to make things less
Good.
complicated.
Yeah.
So
we have
it really
7
does
swims for the
advantage.
longer race, but 3 for the short race.
right.
Okay. So for the longer race, you have 7 swims. That's 14 transitions.
Right.
So if you add 2 minutes at each transition for putting on and off fins, you've added 28 minutes to your race. That team that's not doing that's going to finish almost a half hour ahead of you. So transition time is so important. If you're going to be doing this as a competitive sport, if you're going to try and be competitive in the race, making those transitions as smooth as possible is extremely important. And so adding in an additional step in those transitions, like taking on and off fins, is going to slow you down there. So that's another reason why I don't recommend fins. If you look at a race like Worlds, there's 46 transitions at Worlds. 2 minutes each, you've just added almost 2 hours to your race, hour and a half to 2 hours to your race. So I definitely don't recommend that. Okay. What am I missing?
Do you want to talk about what you do with the buoy while you're running?
Yes. Okay.
And this goes for any buoy. It doesn't have to just be the arc buoy. If you're using any buoy, you can rig it up.
So typically when you buy a buoy, you get it like this. It comes out of the package and it has nothing attached to it. Okay. So what most of us will do is we'll take a piece of lanyard, stretchable, like it's a stretchable fabric, right? Stretchable cord, and we're going to attach it to our buoy. And what I have settled on is what has been dubbed the simple mount. So it's basically just a hole through the buoy, and you can see I've reinforced it so that it won't tear through it, because this is a very thin material, and so it'll tear pretty easily. It's a very it's a porous material. So I've reinforced the hole with a little bit of glue, just normal rubber cement type of glue, so that it won't tear through. And there's just a double fisherman's knot to make sure it doesn't come loose. So it's in a circle, and then pan this down so you can see it a little bit better. Yeah. So I just put it around my waist, and it's probably not good that I've got a black t-shirt on, but I put it around my waist, and then I tuck it in like so. So what it has is it's now, and Dave's showing as well, and then I spin it around and put it on my back. So it's like a little satchel. Dave's got a little better lighting than I do. Show him, Dave, the way you've got it tucked in. So yeah, he's swimming with it now. There you go. And then when I get ready to swim, I spin it around and then just put it between my legs and go. Stand up, tuck it, and spin it back around. There's a couple of different ways that you can mount it. I started off with a lasso mount, which is basically like the term implies, it's a lasso. So it's attached. The lasso is basically around my waist, and then the part where you see the cowboy holding the lasso with his hand, that's what was actually tied to the buoy. And that seemed to work pretty well, but this works a little bit better in keeping it, that cord keeps it pulled up into my crotch, so I don't have to squeeze it real tight with my legs. And then, of course, it makes it very, very nice and tucks it back here so that I can run with it and just take off. The other question I get is, what do I do with my paddles? And what did I do with my paddles? I don't know what I did with them. What do I do with my paddles when I'm swim running? So I'll do a couple different things. I will. Oh, there. So I'll do a couple different things with my paddles when I'm running. The easiest thing is to leave them on your hand, right? But what I'll typically do is take my fingers out and just kind of hold them like this, so that if I did need to use my hands for something, I just kind of drop it and I've got my hands free. I can put my goo in my mouth, and then I can just hold them again. So that's one thing that I'll do with them. Another thing that I'll do, like I mentioned with the kangaroo top that Dave showed, is I'll take the paddles off and kind of tuck it in that pocket, and that frees up my hands once that's tucked into that pocket. And then what I used to do, but I've kind of gotten out of, is I would use a belt, which I'll talk about the belt in a second, and I would just carabiner the belt onto the carabiner the paddles onto the belt. And so what that does is that allows me again to keep my hands free, but it does create a little bit of banging whenever you're running down the trail. My coach, Nicholas Ramirez, who's the head coach of Envol, I did a race with him in Sweden, and I did that with my paddles, and I drove him so nuts with the noise that he's like, well, "Can you please take those off?" So I said, "Sure." And I don't think I've done that with him since, because I realized how annoying it is. All right, so I mentioned the belt. Certainly not necessary, but you can get a SwimRun belt. This is one that I actually made or had made. I designed it and had a friend of mine make it. But basically what the belt is going to serve, and I think Dave, you showed the Orca belt, right? Which you can buy from Orca.
Arc.
Arc also has a belt. Orca has a belt. There's a lot of companies out there that have the belts. But basically what the belt is designed for is for you to be able to tether to your partner. So tethering to your partner is definitely a benefit. Question that I've always gotten is, do I have to tether? And I don't know, Andy, if you require it or if you won't allow it, but typically, go ahead.
We do not require it. As a matter of fact, it took a bit for our permitting authorities to even feel comfortable with the idea of two people being tethered together. But so our teams can use a tether if they wish, and we strongly suggest they practice with it beforehand.
Absolutely.
Or they can swim and stay, I think, what do we ask, between 10 or 20 yards of each other during the swim.
Yeah. So in its creation, SwimRun started off as a two-person team, and they didn't do that just because they thought it would be fun to do it that way. They did it that way from a safety perspective. So when they were the initial race, obviously, was in the Stockholm archipelago, and they're swimming from island to island. They're swimming in the Baltic Sea. The water's very cold, and there's two major shipping lanes that you cross as part of that original course that they did. So it's good to have someone with you should something happen, right? So if you out there by yourself and something happens, you don't have anyone there to assist you, then that's a problem. So that started off as a two-person sport. And then they quickly realized that with some of the rules of staying together, that a tether could actually help you in several aspects. Initially, from a swimming perspective, if you have two people who are swimming and one person's a little bit slower than the other person, you can actually kind of get a tandem bike sort of pull out of this. But there's a couple of different benefits. The first benefit is obviously that pull aspect. But if you notice that in my tether, I've got a bright green cord and we've done bright orange, but we typically use a bright color because anytime that you have to look up to sight, you're moving your body out of a swimming position and you're creating drag. So the more you sight, the straighter you'll go, but the more you sight, the slower you'll go. So if you've got both the front swimmer and the person in the back both sighting at the same time, you're going to create a problem with being slow. So again, if you want to be the most efficient, person in the back should not have to sight. Trust the person in the front and just look at this. So if you're being tethered, that tether's right in front of you like this. And I don't have to sight if I'm in the back because if the tether starts to go like this, then that means I need to turn along with it. And if it goes like this, then that means I need to turn along with it. I need to keep that thing on my nose. And if my partner is turning for whatever reason to course correct or to get around a tree that's down near the exit, I just follow that tether wherever that tether tells me to go. So it's that feedback. For the person in the front, the feedback is I don't have to constantly look back to make sure I'm with my teammate. As Andy mentioned, you got to stay within a certain amount of distance of each other. And if I'm the front swimmer and I don't have this tether, I have to constantly be looking back to make sure my partner is still staying up with me, that we're staying together and I'm not hauling off and leading him. So having that tether is I know he's back there or I know she's back there. I don't have to look. I know it. And if something happens and there's an issue, that person will sit up and that tether will get real tight and I'll have that instant feedback that there's a problem and I can sit up and make sure that that person's okay or figure out what the problem is. Go ahead, Dave. On mute.
Ah, it's almost my bedtime. Um, the I just wanted to mention an alternative to a race or a swim run specific belt is
Yep.
any open water swimming safety buoy. We'll call this a safety buoy, the inflatable thing comes and attaches to its own belt, right? And this is actually a great belt because it's nice and stiff. It's not stretchy. It's already got a clip on it that you can hook a carabiner to. And in a pinch, these work great for a utility belt for attaching carabiners and things like that too, if you don't have a swim run specific belt. I myself have tried in the past a running or tri type of elastic belt. The challenge with them, especially for attaching a tether, is that they are too stretchy and too forgiving, and you lose that kind of haptic sensing of the pull of the tether if you're using that. So having a nice stiff, fabric web type belt is definitely preferable.
Yep. It's exactly one of the things that I was going to mention. And the example that I've got to give where like a typical triathlon belt or a bib belt that's elastic where it doesn't work is when it does for the person in the back, when it does stretch out, that thing will end up right here underneath their armpits. And so that's usually not a good thing. So for that reason, when I created and designed this belt, and I don't know if it's really necessary. I kind of over designed it. I over engineered it. I have this strap that kind of goes in between your crotch to prevent it from riding up. And again, I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it was needed. The only reason why I could keep it around is I also have a safety whistle kind of built into the buckle. So I've got that safety whistle. The other thing is that you can again you can attach a carabiner to it, so you can see this is a carabiner I had attached in order to hang gear or paddles or my goggles or whatnot on. So that's your race belt. Okay, same thing with the tether. The tether here, I'll put a link in the chat window where I've got like a grocery list if you guys want to go out and purchase this from Amazon. This is just a normal stretchy cord. I use a very, very thin one. The challenge with the very, very thin one is it's very, very stretchy. So if you really need that pull aspect, this is not the one you want to use. The reason I have this one is that myself and my normal racing partner, we're pretty matched when it comes to swimming. So therefore we don't need as much. This is more of a guide than it is a pull. With that said, I broke a couple of ribs back in April, and so my swimming has not been what it's needed to be over the past couple months. And we're racing orcas in 2 weeks, and we're going to swap this one out for something that's a little bit thicker because I might need a little assistance from him on my swimming. So pick a thickness of tether that kind of fits what you're wanting to get out of it. We just tied it with an anchor knot onto a carabiner, and that makes it very, very quick and easy. Again, going back to the transitions being important, makes it very, very quick and easy for me just to be able to latch onto his belt or latch onto my belt when necessary for transitions, and then easy removal if we want to take it off for whatever reason. And this isn't just used in the swim. So you can also use this in the run. Again, if you have a person that's a little bit of a slower runner, you can actually get quite a bit of a pull during your running. The challenge with that is that you have to choose to use it at the right time. Tight, twisty trails that might have obstacles that grab the belt or that you get wrapped around or the tether is probably not a good choice. But if it's flat open path or flat open road, straight open road, you can definitely get some speed. So as an example, we would wear this on some of the longer runs on the World Champs course or in those courses where we can get a little bit more of a pull. Obviously, splitting a tree is not a good idea. One person going on one side, one on the other. Ask me how I know. Okay. All right. Any gear that I missed? Dave, is there anything that I missed from a gear standpoint?
Sorry, off mute, found it. If anybody is curious and has never experienced a rest tube before, I think these will be offered on loan at the race, particularly for solo runners. This is kind of what that looks like. It's about how big it is, right? Uh, maybe the size of a couple packs of cards. It's got a CO2 cartridge that fits in there and then activates if you pull the cord. Um, so just wanted to show that as a piece of kit that's specific to this race. And some races, I think the Attila races use these now for all solo racers as a safety measure since you won't have a partner there.
Right. And that's in case you get into trouble in the water and you need a flotation device to assist you. So, yep. Do you have something else there you want to show there, Dave?
No, I think that was it. You mentioned a whistle. I think some race companies do either require or highly recommend carrying a whistle on board in case you're in trouble out in the woods. And then also, Andy and Kathleen, I don't know if you guys are requiring a compression bandage, but these are available on Amazon, typically stuff in the bottom of the kit because hopefully you won't ever have to use them.
Awesome.
I invite everybody to carefully read our athlete's guide because we can cover a number of those things, and it's easy to forget. Like, do I get a rest tube? Do I not get a rest tube? Do I need a whistle? We do have everything listed there. It happens for our race. We do not have whistles. However, while everyone will have a safety device, whether it be a rest tube for teams, not solos, and a safe swimmer buoy for individuals, we also, I think, we'll see what Emily says when she finishes the race, but I think we're kind of a little heavy on lifeguards, but Kathleen and I like it that way. And that's what will happen. Marcus, if I can ask the question I am most often asked,
Sure.
especially by some of the newer racers, is I think it's usually posed to me this way. I'm interested. I'm interested in swim run. I'm looking forward to the race. Do I have to buy all the gear? I mean, we hear this from triathletes too, and we say, no, just use the bike you have for your first race.
Yep.
You'll be fine. Um, what would be the descending order in your mind as far as gear goes? And would it be pull buoy most important? Is it the paddles?
Kangaroo top. I
yeah.
love kangaroo
And
tops.
a lot of people ask me, can I just use my trail shoes? And they'll say something along the lines of, I read that you can drill holes in the bottom of the trail shoes and you'll be fine. What's your priority in your mind as to what gives you the most speed?
So, especially with a race like yours, where it's not going to be required to have a wetsuit, then obviously, purchasing a wetsuit is probably not necessary. But the pull buoy and paddles is probably the most important. And I know I get this a lot from triathletes. I get a lot from swimmers. Isn't that cheating? And I'm quick to point out, and this is a very like insert my sarcasm quotes, right? Well, no, not really. But if you would prefer to do your triathlon on a 100-pound Huffy bike, sure. Or that those set of carbon wheels, no, you don't need those. Is that cheating? So I don't get so hung up on the fact that using a paddle and bull buoys feels like it's cheating, because this is a different sport. So if you're going to be competitive, if you're going to try and have the best swim run experience, that's typically what you're going to use is a pull buoy and paddles. Does it need to be an arc keel? No, it can be a regular pool, Pool, pool buoy if you'd like. And you can rig those up just as well as you can these. And it doesn't have to be an expensive carbon fiber paddles either. It could be, your typical paddles that you use in your normal swim sessions. Trista mentioned something. I'm just kind of sidebar here for just a second. Trista mentioned something earlier about training with them, and it is something that you should train with, especially from a swimming perspective. Jumping right into a large size paddle and then going out and doing a race without putting your shoulders through that gradual use of those paddles so that you don't injure your shoulders is important. So start training with them, and you can kind of insert pull paddles and to your main sets of your workout slowly and increasing the endurance and kind of gradually building up. But it's definitely that's the two pieces of gear that I would recommend right off the bat would be pull buoy and paddles. Yeah.
I was
I'll
just here
just
to add that. Also, it sounds like a lot of gear, and it can be overwhelming, and especially in this race or any race that you're also required to wear a safety swimmer. Like, don't let that get to you. Like, don't let that bog you down. It is swim run. It is not open water swimming. It is not trail running. It is not triathlon. It is swim run. Everyone's going to be having the gear. It is fun. It's different. Like, keep an open mind about it, and just know that if you feel like you're like the swamp thing getting out like of the of the water carrying all this stuff, like that's kind of the fun about it too. And kind of like I like kind of geeking out with the gear and seeing what works and what doesn't, and it's really fun to play around with. So figure out like in your training what works for you and what doesn't, and then let all of what you've known before with triathlon training or running or anything that you're doing with your particular sport, like let all that go and just keep an open mind with swim run and just be open to it, because it is so much fun. And also when you're out there on race day, like we take care of each other, even if you're not doing this with a partner. This race is going to have a lot of lifeguards, which is great, but in other races you might find yourself more alone out there on the course. So be looking after your other athletes out on the course. Like, make sure that they're doing okay in the swim. If you see someone in trouble, like stop and check on them, make sure that they're good. Take care of the environment. Don't be throwing your gel, trash. Make sure you're placing it in the bin. It's carry in, carry out. you're not leaving any race gear behind, and just being just in general good stewards of the earth and of the race course itself.
Yeah.
It's really not that much gear though. It's really not. You get used to it.
Yeah. And then from a competitive aspect also, I think one way that this differs for folks who haven't done this before, that differs from triathlon and some of the other sports, is you're going to find that for the experienced swim runners that it's a lot more laid back. It's a lot of a um, less of a type A. I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna be competitive with you. It's a lot less of that, and a lot more of, hey, let's help each other out. Even on the World Champs course, you'll see the lead teams, the elite teams, talking to each other, laughing with each other, and having a great time. Yes, they're competing, but they're not so like, with that scowl on their face. You just don't see that here, which is a
They're
nice.
sharing their strategies with
Yeah.
each other to like help
Yeah.
everyone rise together, instead of like Andy just mentioned poking holes in the shoes. Like that's Marcus's trademark.
So
Like, and he shares that with everyone because he wants other people to be successful too.
yeah. So I'll show you. You can't really. I want to see if I can get this on the camera. Don't put holes down here, right? Don't drill holes in the bottom of your shoes. Drill them here, right? I don't know if you can see. There's probably you can probably kind of see a hole right there. But I put the holes along the soles right here. Even though this is a pretty well draining shoe, I still, because it has a rubber cap on the front, a rubber protective thing on the front, I end up getting a little bit of sloshiness in my toes. So I drill holes along the sole, right where the upper meets the sole. This was a brand new pair of shoes a week ago. I took them right out of the box and immediately like right through the shoes. So it definitely, I know a lot of people have different opinions about it, but I know when I do this to my shoes, within 2 or 3 steps, I have no sloshiness left. And so it's a lot more comfortable. I can tell when I was at Worlds and running alongside another team on Monday, and I was listening very carefully. One person had some holes drilled in his shoes, didn't hear anything. His teammate hadn't had any holes and it was like squish, 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 squish the whole time he was running. So I definitely do that. And on my shoe video, you can really see it a little bit better because I'm outside when I'm showing the shoes. I actually had someone reach out to me. It's like, hey, I watched your video. Are those holes? I'm like, yeah, it is.
Well, thank
But
you
again,
for, oh,
if you don't want to drill holes in your trail shoes, you don't have to. So
yeah. This,
Andy, I just wanted to add there is enough local-ish Envol people that will be coming with extra gear. So not that you'd want to like use it for race day, having never used it before, but if you wanted to try it out for our session on that Friday, you're very welcome to. We'll have paddles, we'll have pull buoys that we'll have uh pennies that you can practice with.
and that's a good point. It's listed in the athlete's guide in the schedule, but there will be a in-person clinic of sorts. Emily, you'll be there. Chris Douglas from the Low Tide Boys will be there, um, and uh, and some Envol people. So we're looking forward to having that and help with the education. But Trista and Marcus, you both brought up a great point about the atmosphere at the swim runs. Kathleen and I, when we went to our first, we were just struck by the low-key, friendly, wonderful atmosphere. And every swim run we've done since, and it's like we look forward to the next one because it is such a wonderful community and very supportive of each other. It matches up very well with this part of Cape Cod or this part of the United
that's
States
awesome.
or the world as far as the low key and I guess more of a calm,
Friendly.
friendly
Yeah,
atmosphere on the outer
I was
Cape.
gonna take it a step further and say that if you meet someone at a swim run and they're not friendly and they're not welcoming, they're probably new.
Yeah.
And they haven't learned that yet. Or they haven't experienced it yet.
Something to look forward to.
So I did want to plug the time. So that clinic that that Trista or Emily was mentioning is Friday before the race at 3 p.m. and we'll meet down at Long Pond. So that is one of the ponds on the race course. So we hope that we'll see everyone here plus a bunch more. Last year it was really, really helpful. So many people were like, "Ah, I feel so much better." Um, and uh, and we're really looking forward to seeing you guys.
But in advance, I have to say I will not be able to attend. We'll be too busy planting little
I'll be there.
pink flags on the
Oh,
trails, 12 miles of trails.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope Dave or Emily are bringing fika. So I hope everyone's introduced to the concept of fika.
Emily dropped my YouTube channel link in the chat. Thank you, Emily. I'm gonna drop two more. So one of them is the website and blog that I have, and you'll find tips and tricks up there. And then obviously, probably another good way to get in contact with me is via Instagram, and I'll drop that one in there. Question we have in the chat, fika, what is fika? So fika is a Swedish word. You can do a Google search for fika, but basically what fika is it's usually a gathering of people that get together. Think of it as like a coffee break, but with snacks. And it's typically or traditionally in the mid-afternoon. So, but you can have fika anytime. It doesn't have to have coffee, but it usually does have snacks of some sort. So, usually,
It's best had with swim runners.
yep, yep, and it's usually some pastries that's involved. Canabule, which is basically cinnamon rolls, cinnamon buns, is a favorite over in Sweden. So, yeah,
You
have
have
me
me at
at
snacks.
I love it. Yeah.
All right.
But it's generally meant to as a get together and socialize with your friends and chit chat over coffee and snacks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all so much. This has been so helpful. I hope that everyone here has gotten as much out of this Q&A as we have. And we look forward to seeing at least some of you um, at um, at this year's race. No rain. What I hear now, it's supposed to be a beautiful day.
What?
A very long range forecast and wishful thinking.
And
So,
we have a makeup day.
oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
So,
So we do have the makeup day on Sunday, after the race or after Saturday, the next day.
right,
There we
because
go.
the last 2 years, the following day was beautiful after
Right,
the hurricane.
right.
So we'll look forward to that. Thank you all.
All right. All right. Thanks so much. You all have a great night, and we really appreciate you all.
All
Thank
right,
you.
see
Good
you.
luck, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.